They thought I would be the free babysitter for 15 kids at my own son's wedding, but instead I changed my plans. That's how my story begins. I was 72, a widow, and for decades I had lived my life in the shadows of everyone else's needs. I had cooked, cleaned, worked part-time, and kept my family afloat when times were rough. And yet, on the day that should have been a celebration of love and respect, my own son and his fiancée treated me like hired help. Before we go further into today's dramatic story, don't forget to subscribe to Twist Stories and hit the notification bell. Here, you'll always find stories of sacrifice, betrayal, and those jaw-dropping twists where tables finally turn. Where are you watching from? Leave me a comment below. Maybe the next story will echo your own family experience. Dan, my only son, was marrying Melissa Harper, a woman whose heels were sharp but whose words cut sharper. From the very first dinner I hosted, I felt the frost behind her smile. I had tried to welcome her into the family. I offered recipes, cooked her favorite meals, even gave her the sapphire brooch my late husband once gifted me as her something blue. But Melissa wasn't a woman who valued quiet gestures. She craved control, spectacle, and obedience. Her sister Rachel was always by her side. If Melissa was ice, Rachel was fire, loud, mocking, with a smirk that seemed permanently etched onto her lips. Together, the two of them made quite the pair. They didn't see me as family, they saw me as furniture. When Dan suggested having the reception in my backyard, I didn't protest. I wanted my son's day to be perfect. I spent nearly $3,000 of my own savings on flowers, decorations, and trays of food. After all, I used to run a small catering business when I was younger. Cooking was my love language. But perfection, I would soon learn, wasn't the plan they had for me. One late afternoon, I stepped out to water the hydrangeas by the patio. That's when I heard it. Melissa and Rachel sipping wine, laughing carelessly. Rachel's voice sliced through the summer air. "So, the old lady's taking care of all the kids, right? That's like 15 brats off our hands." Melissa chuckled, swirling her glass. "Free professional nanny. At least she'll be useful for once. Honestly, she should be grateful we even let her be part of this. By the time she wrangles those kids, no one will even remember she's at the wedding." Their words stabbed me deeper than any knife. No one will even remember she's at the wedding. I froze. The garden hose slipped from my hand, spraying water onto the dirt. For a moment, 72 years pressed down on me all at once. My gray hair, my aching knees, my hands worn from decades of labor. Was this really all I was worth to them? A tired babysitter? Quietly, with trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone. I pressed record. Their cruel laughter echoed into the microphone. I didn't know why I did it then. Maybe instinct, maybe survival. But that recording became my hidden seed of power. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, memories flooding me. When Dan was little, I worked double shifts to afford his braces. I sewed his Halloween costumes by hand. I even sold my grandmother's wedding ring to cover his college tuition shortfall. Every wrinkle on my face carried a story of sacrifice. And yet, here I was, mocked as useful for once. Have you ever heard words so cruel from people who should have welcomed you as family? If you have, you know that sting. And let me tell you, you are not alone. The next day, my childhood friend Gloria came over for tea. She's always been the one person who could read my face like a book. "You're troubled," she said gently, stirring her cup. I sighed. "It's Dan's wedding. I can't ruin it, Gloria." She leaned forward, her eyes blazing with fire. Sometimes the only way to teach respect is to let people taste the consequences of their disrespect. Her words lingered in the air like smoke. Consequences. That night, I sat at my desk and wrote a short letter. Just a few lines folded neatly into a cream envelope. Beside it, I placed the USB drive, labeled only with a red sticker. Inside was the recording of Melissa and Rachel's cruel laughter. I didn't know when I would reveal it. Maybe I wouldn't have to, but just knowing I had proof that I wasn't crazy, that their cruelty wasn't imagined, gave me strength. The day before the wedding, Melissa strutted into my kitchen. Her satin robe shimmered under the light, her lipstick flawless. You've got the kids' play area set up, right? Snacks, coloring books, toys, all of it. I don't want screaming during the vows. Her tone wasn't a request. It was a command. I smiled sweetly, masking the fire in my chest. Don't worry, Melissa. I've got everything covered. She nodded and walked out, satisfied. She had no idea that my words carried another meaning entirely. Covered, yes. But not the way she thought. As I stirred the final batch of cookie dough that night, I whispered to myself, for 72 years I have carried everyone's burdens. Tomorrow I will finally drop them. And the sound of that drop would echo louder than any wedding bells. The morning of the wedding should have been filled with joy. Instead, sunlight cut through my curtains like a spotlight on a stage I never auditioned for. I brewed my coffee slowly, the aroma rising calm and steady, even as outside my house buzzed like a hive. Delivery vans, florists, cousins rushing in and out, and yet, in the middle of that frenzy, I stood still, calm on the surface. But inside, a storm gathered. Melissa barged into the kitchen, clipboard in hand, heels striking the tiles like a gavel. She didn't glance at me, not once. Evelyn, make sure you're in the playroom before guests arrive. The kids will be dropped off around noon. I don't want any accidents. Her words weren't a request. They were an order. I nodded gently. Of course, dear. But inside, her words slithered like snakes. By late morning, the house looked breathtaking. White roses draped across the archway, golden lights woven through the oak trees, tables set under the big tent. The buffet I'd spent weeks preparing lined the tables, and guests gasped at the spread. None of them knew the cost. My savings, my sleepless nights, my swollen, arthritic hands. Dan came over straightening his tie. My heart leapt. My son, my pride. For one moment, I thought he might thank me. Instead, he said, Mom, can you make sure the kids are settled before the ceremony? Melissa's stressed out, and I promised her you'd handle it. Promised her. Not asked me. Promised her. I forced a smile. Of course, sweetheart. But inside, something cracked. My son, my own flesh and blood, had promised me away like I was part of the rental package. Carrying trays of fruit to the kitchen, I caught Rachel's voice, bright and cruel, drifting through the air. She stood with two bridesmaids smirking. Watch tonight. Evelyn will be so busy babysitting she won't even taste a bite of her own cooking. At least she won't embarrass anyone with that outdated dress. The bridesmaids giggled. Outdated dress. Babysitter. Invisible. My knuckles whitened against the tray. Anger churned, but beneath it, grief rose like a tide. After decades of being the backbone, I had become the family punchline. Have you ever been laughed at by people who should have welcomed you? If you have, you know that sting, the kind that doesn't fade. The children arrived in a flurry. Nieces, nephews, cousins, restless toddlers tugging at satin bows. Parents handed them off like luggage, patting my shoulder. Thanks, Evelyn. You're a lifesaver. You're the best. Not a single offer to stay. Not one. Soon, 15 children crammed into the side room of my house. Crayons rolled under chairs, juice boxes spilled, shoes scattered. My living room, the place where I'd once celebrated Christmas mornings, had turned into a chaotic daycare. Melissa peeked in. Lipstick. Flawless. not a hair out of place. "Keep them quiet, Evelyn. The photographer's about to start." I nodded again, lips curved in calm, but inside the phone in my pocket burned, a hidden weapon, holding every cruel word they thought I'd never hear. At one point, little Emma, Rachel's daughter, spilled orange soda all over my sofa. I rushed to blot it, panic pricking my chest. Rachel swept in, laughing. "Oh, don't stress, Evelyn. That sofa's old anyway. Maybe this gives you an excuse to upgrade." Her smirk cut deeper than the stain. For the first time, my smile slipped. My voice, low but sharp, escaped before I could stop it. "Some things may look old, Rachel, but old doesn't mean useless. Remember that." Her smirk faltered, just slightly before she turned away. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. I wasn't powerless. I had chosen silence all these years, but silence wasn't my only option. As the noise from the children grew, Melissa stormed back in, mask cracking. "Evelyn, can't you control them? Do I need to hire someone last minute?" Her voice shook, not with authority, but with panic. Dan followed quickly, tugging at his cuffs, whispering, "Mom, please, Melissa's stressed. Just handle it, okay?" "For me." I looked at him. My boy, who once cried when I couldn't buy him new sneakers, who once clutched my hand crossing the street. Now he couldn't even see me. I whispered back, steady and broken all at once. "Dan, do you even see me today? Or am I just invisible help to you too?" He blinked, confused, then muttered, "Please, Mom, not today." And he walked away. Not today. The words echoed like a verdict, as if respect had a schedule, as if dignity could be postponed. While laughter and commands rang through the house, I slipped away into my bedroom. On my dresser sat the cream envelope and the small USB drive with the red sticker. I touched them gently, like old friends. I looked into the mirror, my own reflection staring back, lined, tired, but unbroken. "They think you're weak," I whispered. "They think you'll obey, but tomorrow they'll remember who Evelyn Carter is." At that exact moment, my phone buzzed with a text from Gloria. "Ready? Spa bags packed." My lips curled into a smile. Yes, I was ready. By evening, the tent outside glowed with golden light. Music swelled, guests laughed, champagne flowed. It looked perfect from the outside. But inside, the side room was a battlefield, crumbled cookies on the rug, tantrums echoing off the walls, my arms aching from chasing 15 children. Melissa swept in, eyes sharp, voice cutting. "Evelyn, stay here until the vows are done. Don't you dare slip out." I met her gaze, calm, unshaken. "Don't worry, Melissa," I said softly. "You'll get exactly what you deserve." She blinked, confused. She didn't understand. But the audience will. Because tomorrow, when the spotlight should have been on her perfect wedding, it would shift, entirely, irrevocably, onto the chaos she had created, and I would not lift a single finger to stop it. Outside, violins played. Inside, children screamed. Guests toasted under twinkling lights, unaware that the foundation was about to crack. I sat among crayons and spilled soda, calm in the storm, one hand resting lightly on my pocket. The proof was there. The plan was set. And the moment would come when silence would no longer be my weakness. It would be my revenge. The morning of the wedding dawned deceptively beautiful. Sunlight spilling across my lawn, roses heavy with dew, white tents shimmering with fairy lights. To everyone else, it looked like a fairy tale. To me, it was a stage built on disrespect. I rose before sunrise, moving quietly through my kitchen and slipped two things into my handbag, a cream-colored envelope and a small USB drive with a red sticker, my secret companions, my proof, my weapons. On the counter sat trays of food I had prepared, pies cooling, flowers already arranged. To the world, it looked like devotion. In truth, it was the final act of a woman who had given everything and received nothing in return. I sat with my tea, hands trembling. Was I cruel even to think of leaving? Melissa's words haunted me. She should be grateful we even let her be part of this. No one will even remember she's at the wedding. No one will even remember. The sentence burrowed deep like a thorn. I thought of Dan, my little boy, once clinging to my hand in the grocery store. Would he hate me if I vanished on his big day? Then I remembered his dismissal. Please, Mom, not today. If not today, then when? I realized guilt was just another leash, and at 72, I was ready to cut it. At 9 o'clock, Gloria's red convertible pulled into the driveway, bright as rebellion itself. She strode in with sunglasses glinting, weekend bag slung over her shoulder. "You ready?" she asked. I laughed softly. "You make it sound like war." "In a way, it is," she said, gripping my hand. "But remember, wars aren't always fought with fists. Sometimes the sharpest weapon is absence." Her words pierced straight through me. Absence. Yes, they had built this entire charade on my presence, on my labor. What would happen when I simply wasn't there? By noon, guests were already arriving. Melissa, glowing in satin, swept into the kitchen. "Evelyn, you'll skip the ceremony and stay with the kids. We can't risk distractions. After all, this is our big moment." Her tone wasn't cruel. It was casual. That casualness hurt more than rage. She wasn't asking. She was assuming. "So," I asked quietly, "I won't even see my son exchange vows?" She shrugged. "It'll be recorded. You can watch later." That was it. The final straw snapped. "Of course," I murmured, too calm. She left, satisfied, not realizing those were the last words she would hear from me that day. Minutes later, I picked up the phone. "Hello? Yes, I need to cancel the catering order." The company hesitated, but the contract bore my name, my deposit, my authority. The trucks turned around. Next, the florist. Cancel the additional arrangements. Leave only what's already delivered. Piece by piece, I unraveled the illusion of their perfect day, quietly, surgically. When I hung up, I slipped the receipts into the envelope along with my letter. I read it one last time. "Dan, I raised you with sacrifice and dignity, but today my love has been mistaken for servitude. I will not stand as a free babysitter, mocked behind my back, erased from your memories on the most important day of your life. By the time you read this, I will be gone. Respect is not owed by age. It is earned by kindness. Love, Mom." I set it on the kitchen table beneath a vase of roses. Beside it, the USB, Melissa and Rachel's mocking voices captured forever. Proof waiting to strike. Outside, laughter swelled. Champagne glasses clinked. Inside, I draped a shawl over my shoulders, picked up my bag, and walked out the front door. No one noticed. The irony was sharp. They had joked that no one would remember if I was at the wedding, and indeed, in that moment, no one did. Until they did. The drive with Gloria felt like liberation. At the spa, warm towels wrapped around me, soft music soothed my bones, and yet guilt whispered, maybe I should go back. Maybe I ruined everything. But Gloria's words echoed, "This isn't abandonment, it's a lesson." For the first time, I allowed myself to believe it. Though absent, I pictured it perfectly. Children arriving, parents handing them off like luggage, only to find no Evelyn waiting in the playroom, confusion spreading, Melissa panicking, Dan searching, guests arriving to find no buffet, whispers turning to complaints, Rachel storming into the kitchen, ripping open the envelope, her face paling as she read my words, then sliding the USB into a laptop, Melissa's cruel laughter filling the room, undeniable, unforgettable, and all of it unfolding without me lifting a single finger. In the spa garden, a young woman reading a book smiled at me. "First time here?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I'm learning to choose myself." She nodded. "Good. My mom never did, and it broke her. Don't wait too long." I smiled faintly. It's never too late. And for the first time, I believed it. That evening, as I lay in the lounge with cucumber slices over my eyes, my phone buzzed again. Call after call, text after text. Against my better judgment, I glanced at one message. A photo of children climbing onto the wedding cake, Melissa screaming in the background, guests staring in horror. I covered my mouth, half gasp, half laugh. My vision had come true, and it was only the beginning. Because tomorrow, the real reckoning would begin. Not just chaos, but consequences. The truth inside that envelope would strip away every illusion they had about me. I wasn't invisible. I was unforgettable. By dawn the next morning, my phone was swollen with missed calls. 30, 50, nearly 100. I ignored most until curiosity pulled me toward one voicemail. Melissa's voice shrieked through the speaker, high and cracked with rage. "Evelyn, how dare you vanish like that? Do you know what you did? The food never came. The kids destroyed everything. The guests left early. You ruined my wedding. You selfish old witch." I sipped my tea at the spa cafe, unbothered, as her fury poured into the phone. Then came another message, Dan's voice, fractured and desperate. "Mom, please, just call me. We need to talk, please." For the first time in years, I didn't rush to soothe him. The fallout. Back at my house, chaos had long since burst into the open. Rachel, ever the snoop, had found the envelope on the kitchen table. She tore it open, her voice trembling as she read my letter aloud. Guests overheard. Some murmured. Others nodded knowingly. And then, the USB. Rachel slid it into a laptop, maybe to erase it. Instead, she unleashed it. Melissa's voice filled the speakers, cold and unmistakable. "Free professional nanny. At least she'll be useful for once." Rachel's mocking laugh followed. "No one will even remember she's at the wedding." The room froze. Parents who had shoved their kids at me stared at one another, ashamed. Dan's face drained of color, and Melissa, her flawless image cracked like glass under a hammer. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. They were daggers. As if that weren't enough, one guest had been live streaming the reception. Within hours, clips went viral. Toddlers smearing cake on satin tablecloths, guests fanning themselves over empty tables, Melissa shrieking with mascara running down her cheeks. "Disaster wedding," the captions screamed. Comments poured in. Mockery, pity, disbelief, none flattering. And through it all, my absence became the loudest presence of all. That evening, when I finally returned home, the house still smelled of stale champagne and crushed roses. Confetti clung to the carpet. Shattered decorations lay in corners like abandoned lies. Dan sat slumped at the kitchen table, head in his hands. Behind him, Melissa stood rigid, arms crossed, her eyes red but blazing. The moment I stepped inside, Melissa exploded. "You humiliated us. You abandoned us. Do you know what people are saying? That our wedding was a circus, all because of you." I set down my handbag, calm. "No, Melissa, all because of you. Because you mocked me, used me, and thought respect was optional." Dan raised his head, eyes hollow. "Mom, why didn't you just tell me? Why sabotage everything?" I leaned closer, voice low but sharp. "I did tell you, Dan, for years, in every meal I cooked, every sacrifice I made, every night I worked myself to the bone. But you stopped listening. So I stopped speaking. Yesterday, silence spoke for me. Melissa jabbed a finger at me. That recording was gossip. We were joking. I tilted my head. Calm. Deadly. Do you want to argue that in court? Because what I heard wasn't a joke. It was cruelty. And the catering? I paid for it. I signed the contract. The only person with the right to cancel was me. Her face twisted. She hadn't expected I'd think that far ahead. This house, this garden. I spread my arms. They are mine, not yours to command, not your playground. You trespassed on my dignity. Yesterday, dignity evicted you. Dan stood, torn between us. His voice cracked. Mom, please, Melissa was stressed. Weddings are stressful. Can't we just move past this? I turned to him, my boy, my pride, and my deepest wound. My voice softened, though steel remained. Stress doesn't excuse cruelty, Dan, and love doesn't excuse erasing your mother. If you can't see the difference, then maybe it's not me who's absent. Maybe it's you. For once, he had no defense. Cornered, Melissa lashed out. You're just bitter. Oh, lonely, desperate for attention. No wonder your husband's dead. You probably drove him to the grave with your selfishness. The words cut deep, but I refused to flinch. Instead, I answered with quiet fire. My husband loved me. Do you know why? Because I gave and gave without asking for repayment. That was my mistake. But I've learned now, love without respect is slavery, and I will never wear those chains again. The room fell silent. Even Melissa's venom dried on her tongue. I walked to the table, lifted the wilted petals from the wedding centerpieces, and let them fall into the trash. A simple gesture, final. This is my house, I said, firm. If you cannot treat me with respect, you are not welcome here. Melissa, you may be Dan's wife, but you will never be my warden. Rachel will not be my mocker. And Dan, if you choose them over me, then you choose to forget the woman who raised you. The air itself seemed to crackle. Melissa tried one last desperate jab. You can't cut us out. We're family. I turned, my gaze steady, burning with a strength she had never imagined. Family isn't blood, Melissa. Family is love. And love without respect? That isn't family. It's trespassing. This villa? It's mine. And right now, you are the trespasser. She froze. Dan froze. Even the walls seemed to hold their breath. I picked up my shawl, draped it over my shoulders, and walked toward the door. Behind me, Melissa sputtered. Dan whispered my name, but I didn't stop. For 72 years, I had been the silent servant. But tonight, I was the storm that left them shaken. And tomorrow, they would have to decide. Would they learn respect or lose me forever? Either way, the tables had turned. The week after the wedding, my house was silent. No voices echoing down the hall, no demands clattering through the kitchen, only the ticking of the grandfather clock and the gentle rustle of leaves outside. For the first time in years, I wasn't bracing for the next chore, the next insult. I sat in my armchair with a book on my lap, sunlight spilling across the rug, steam rising from a cup of tea. Freedom, I realized, wasn't loud. It was steady. It was peace. The world, however, wasn't quiet. News of the disaster wedding spread like wildfire. At church, whispers trailed after Melissa's name. On sidewalks, neighbors shook their heads. Online, clips replayed endlessly. Toddlers climbing onto the dessert table, Rachel screeching, Melissa sobbing with mascara streaking her cheeks. My absence had become the story. And Dan? He came to my porch 3 days later, shoulders slumped, eyes shadowed, a man aged by a single week. "Mom," he said softly, "can we talk?" I let him in, poured him tea, and waited. He stared at the cup like it might hold answers. Then his voice cracked. "I watched the recording. I read your letter, and I saw myself. Really saw myself. I let Melissa treat you like staff. I let Rachel mock you. I didn't protect you. I didn't even see you." Tears welled in his eyes. For a moment, he looked like the little boy I once cradled against my chest, and my heart twisted. "I'm sorry, Mom. I failed you." For a long while, silence filled the room. One part of me wanted to rush forward, to hug him and whisper forgiveness. But the wiser part, the part born from 72 years of sacrifice, knew better. Forgiveness without change is only permission for more hurt. "Dan," I said gently, "I love you. I will always love you. But love without respect cannot survive. If you want a relationship with me, it has to begin with respect." He nodded, tears slipping free. "I'll earn it, Mom. I promise." Melissa didn't come with him. Neither did Rachel. No calls, no letters. Perhaps out of shame, perhaps out of pride. I didn't chase them. For once I understood that absence could speak louder than confrontation. If they wanted a place in my life, they would have to walk back humbly. Until then, the door remained shut. Days blurred into weeks, and I began to find pieces of myself I thought were gone forever. I joined a library book club, my laughter mixing with strangers who soon became friends. Each morning I walked with Gloria, our conversations bubbling like schoolgirls. I even enrolled in a watercolor class, something I'd always wanted but never had time for. My hands, once rough from endless cooking and scrubbing, now brushed soft blues across paper skies, dotted wildflower meadows in gentle greens and golds. My heart, once heavy with obligation, now felt light with possibility. At 72, I wasn't invisible. I was reborn. One Sunday afternoon, Dan returned, alone. This time, he carried a box. "I found this while we were cleaning," he said, setting it on the table. Inside were framed photographs, me holding him as a newborn, me beaming at his graduation, me cheering at his first baseball game. "I forgot," he whispered, voice cracking. "I forgot all the times you were there, and I'll never forgive myself for it. But I want to start remembering again, with you." This time, I reached across the table and clasped his hand. "Then let's begin." That night, lying in bed, the house peaceful around me, I replayed everything. For decades, I had believed that silence was love, that bending until I broke was duty. But true love does not erase itself. True love stands tall. True love demands dignity. Sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is not shout or fight, but step away, letting absence thunder louder than any words. I whispered into the dark. They thought I was powerless. But I was never powerless. I simply hadn't chosen myself yet. Have you ever been treated as if you were invisible until you finally said enough? If you have, you know the power of reclaiming your voice. Because respect isn't begged for. Respect is claimed, not through anger, but through the quiet strength of walking away. So to every woman watching, every mother, grandmother, wife, or daughter, hear me. You are not just a helper, not just a background character. You are the heart, the anchor, the storm, and the calm, and you deserve to be seen. As the story closes, picture this. Evelyn Carter, once mocked as a free babysitter, now painting wildflowers by a sunny window, laughter echoing with her best friend Gloria, dignity shining in her quiet smile. She didn't need revenge set ablaze. She needed only to choose herself. And in choosing herself, she turned the tables more powerfully than any outburst ever could.